Guys, how are you? It's Meredy here with Not Just for Boys Kit Club, and today I'm going to show you how to make our September 2021 page kit designed by me, Meredy. What's going to come in your page kit is one pack of Paige Evans Bungalow Lane ephemera with the foil, copper foil, one skein of DMC floss, and one pack of these little metal filigree little leaves, and a piece of the Paige Evans Bungalow Lane paper, number 8, and a piece of the Paige Evans Bungalow Lane paper, number 19, and 2 pieces of this buttercream cardstock. And then you're gonna also have your instruction sheet, and we're gonna start out by cutting the papers down to the size that's designated on your instruction sheet. Okay, I'm back and I've cut my papers down to the size I needed, and we're gonna work on the left-hand side of the layout first. And the pictures that go on the left-hand side of the layout are one 3x4 photo and one photo that's cropped down to 2 inches by 2.5 inches. So those are the photos we're gonna work with. And we're gonna work with a lot of the ephemera. So I'm just gonna open all of this and put it on the side. I know it's kind of loud, crinkly opening it. That's why I want to do it first. Okay, we're going to work with a lot of the ephemera. We're going to use the embroidery floss on this side, and then these few pieces of paper. I'm going to just put them off to the side. Okay, the first thing that you're going to want to do is trim your background, this background sheet down to, it's still going to be 12 inches tall, but it's only going to be 11 1/4 inch wide. Okay, because you're going to keep this branding strip intact from this piece that you cut off, and you are going to use that right there underneath. So I'm just going to adhere this to the bottom. So now this page is going to be 12 inches wide after I add this little strip to the side. So I'll do that first. So again, you trimmed down this background to 11 1/4 inch, so that when you extend a little, it's still 12 inches wide. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Some of the tape is sticking out in the back. Okay. The next step that you're going to do is you're going to want to draw a big circle very lightly with pencil on this page. I am going to use a Creative Memories circle template to do that, but you could use a plate or a bowl or anything that you have that's round and circular shape. And again, you're just gonna draw it really light in pencil. And I'm trying to center it pretty centered. It's centered on both sides pretty well, and the top and the bottom pretty well. And very light, because you don't wanna have to go back and erase it. So there you can see my circle. So that circle guide is what we're going to use to put all of our embellishments down, because this layout is a circular shape. The first thing that we should do next, or the next thing that we should do, is mat. You have a pretty big piece of this paper that's not being used. You use that to mat this photo. So we will mat this 3x4 photo on this blue floral paper. And let me trim that down. And then if you want, you can, let's see here. I think it would be nice to go ahead and put the 2.5 by 2 picture into the little frame that comes in the ephemera pack. There's a couple different frames in here. There's a black and white striped one, but I used this one that says good morning. That's green. So if you don't want it to say good morning, you can always cover up the word good morning with another little piece of ephemera out of this pack. We don't use the whole pack on this layout. There's plenty of little leftover pieces. So you can kind of customize this layout to match your pictures or your theme of your layout. Let's get that off. Okay, so now at least we have the 2 photos that we know are going to go on this layout. The next step is going to be, you can omit this step if you'd like, but I kind of liked this step. I inked with ink around this circle, and I used Distress Oxide dried marigold ink and the little blending tool. I'm going to remove these pictures to do this because I don't want to get ink on them. And what I did is I just really lightly inked and blended it out just around the circle. It's kind of cool because you can hardly see the pencil line now after you do this, but when you look really closely, you could see it just enough for what we're doing to place everything down, but it won't be seen very much in the finished layout, so that's good. And you can bring this in. This Distress Oxide ink is really forgiving, and you can work with it a lot, so you can drag it out a little, bring it in to the middle and out to the edges. Just like this. I'm gonna speed this up so you're not sitting here watching me ink this circle the whole time. I'm gonna speed it up a little. And now that the circle is inked, I'm gonna go ahead and ink. I liked the ink color around the edges of my whole layout, just to make it a little different and add a little color to the edges. And I'm still using that Distress Oxide dried marigold ink for this. And again, if you don't like inking the edges of your layouts, you would just skip this step right here. Doesn't matter. It's just a preference. Okay, so we've got this part done. I'm gonna set this ink off to the side now. The next thing that I suggest that you start doing is laying out approximately where everything is going to sit here. And like I had said earlier, you have so many different options of ephemera over here that you do not have to use the same ones I do. You can use ones that fit better with your pictures and your layout than what I'm choosing here. And you're gonna notice that a lot of this ephemera, I don't leave it like it is. I'm gonna cut it and alter some of them and layer up some of them so they're all, this one worked perfectly because my pictures had my son drinking apple cider. It couldn't have been a better piece of ephemera to use. Let's see. There's all kinds of good things in this pack. So I just went through and I picked my favorites first. That's how I designed this in the first place. I picked my favorites that I thought matched well with my photos, and I just went from there. Okay, I feel like I'm missing a couple things that I skipped. I am. So I cut the bird off of the top of this one. I just fussy cut this little guy right here. So I'm gonna do that right now. You might not want to cut him out if you really loved him on top of the journals and the books, or this might just fit with your layout and you could replace the leaf with it. Let's see. Okay, I've got this. It looks like I have everything. And then I took this piece that we had cut, and what I did is I just cut right here. I cut right here and up the side and up this side. So it almost is going to look like a little envelope. I'll show you here. I cut right there and right there and right there. We don't even need, we'll use more of this on the other side of the layout. And so we have this shape, and I just folded the top down. So it looks like a little envelope on my layout, and I'm gonna end up tucking it in there. Okay, so now that we've got everything laid out, we can start altering some of these pieces. For instance, I cut the word love all the way apart. I cut each letter individually, just because I wanted to see a little bit more of this ink and a little bit more of the stitching that I'm going to show you about how to do. So I didn't want so much white from the word love showing. And in order to cut the middle of this O, you can either use an X-Acto knife, or you can just cut the middle out with scissors. And you don't even have to do this part. If you wanted to leave the word love intact, then you would just leave it intact. But I've got some, between my stitching in the background and my ink in the background, I wanted it to show a little bit more. And then, let's see. Now you're not going to want to adhere anything quite yet. And actually, you don't even adhere the word love here until towards the very end. Oh, this happiness and sunshine, I cut right after the word happiness and before the ampersand for and. This little admit one ticket, I just wanted a little bit peeking out, and I think I used this on the other side, so let's save that. This little tag, I don't think I used it on the other side, but I thought it was cute and I wanted to save some of it. So I cut the bottom off and just used this portion. Now this Cozy Simple Happy, I have a punch that I used to punch it out to look like a tag, but you could just cut it in a rectangle around it and then hole punch. I hole punched a little hole in the top so I could put string in it, so it kind of pulls in where we put string on all three of these pieces. So I'm gonna punch this with the punch and the hole punch in the top, but you could just cut it into a rectangle if you wanted. The hole punch that I used is this one from EK Success, but I'm sure there's a lot of little tag hole punches floating around out there that you could use. So I did that, and then I punched a hole right here in the top using my Crop-A-Dile. Just right about there. Okay, so now we can start adhering. I'm gonna move these things out of the way. We can start adhering down these things. Let's see. I'm going to start right here in this corner, and I'm going to adhere the tag all the way down to the base page of the layout. But the house that's on top of this tag, I'm actually going to pop up on dimensional adhesive pop dots, because I want to give a little layer and depth in here. So and then moving down the page, I am going to adhere the bottom first, which is this little guy sticking out of the bottom. He's at the very bottom layer of this grouping. So I'm going to adhere him right there. And then the 3x4 photograph next. And then I popped this picture up on dimensional adhesive as well. So we'll put that up on some dimension. I used quite a bit of dimension on this layout. You don't have to, it's just, if you want your layout to be more flat, then just omit the dimensional adhesive and just put it straight onto the page. So this one is there, and then I just stuck, whoa! I just stuck this little portion of the tag right sticking out from under there. And, oops, I should have put this little envelope down before the Instagram frame because it's sticking under it, but that's okay. I'll put it right here. Okay, and then I did pop this up on Pop Dots as well on my example. And then it goes right here. And I did this one too, this home. It's popped up. And basically in every little grouping, I popped something up. Here's this. And like you can see, you cannot even really see where your pencil lines are in here. That ink did a pretty good job of hiding it, but I think you can see just enough to know where to place things. So the leaf I left flat on the page. Sunshine, or happiness and sunshine, I popped up on dimension. I'm just gonna cut some of these in half because they're so thick. Happiness. And sunshine. I'm really excited to see what pictures and what different ephemera you pick while you're making this layout. Like using mine as a jumping springboard if you don't want the same embellishments, and I'm excited to see what other designs you guys come up with. Or if you make it exactly like mine, which is perfect, I'm excited to see what kind of pictures you use. So this little bird, I stuck him in there. He's not on dimension. And I tried to cover his blue feet underneath there so you couldn't tell he had blue feet because there was a little blue when I cut him out. Okie doke. And then Comforts of Home is flat on the page. And Cozy Simple Happy, I put on a little dimension. And like I said, we're gonna wait to adhere that word love after this next step because you'll see why. Okay, so all of those things are down except for the word love. And let's move on to the next step, which is stitching on the layout. I have a little foam pad here. Let's move this guy. A little foam pad and a little hole poker thing. And the pencil line is right here, right in the middle. So what I'm going to do, you can do this a variety of ways, but I'm going to punch one set of holes just on the inside of the pencil line. The pencil line is right here. I'm punching on the inside, and then a matching coordinating set on the outside. And these holes are about 1/4 inch apart. And the reason that I'm punching 2 sets of holes is because I'm going to stitch like X's here. But if you don't want to stitch X's, if you could just do a normal stitch here, you don't have to punch 2 sets of holes, just one, and just stitch plain and normal. But I wanted to do X, like cross stitch shape. So again, I'm doing one set just on the inside of the circle of the line that we drew, and the other set just on the outside. So the pencil line is right here in the middle. And I hope that makes sense. The reason why we didn't do this first is because I didn't want to waste all my time stitching all the way around and have most of it covered up by things. So this is why we're doing the stitching at the end, because there's not too much stitching this way, and it doesn't seem overwhelming and taking hours of time. Oh, I can hardly see the pencil line here. Let's see. So anyway, I'm gonna finish punching this in faster motion. This is why we did not adhere the word love, because the love has so many little openings that show to the background of the paper that it would be really hard to adhere it and stitch around those letters. So I'm gonna do the rest of this in a little fast motion, and I will see you in a second when I start actually stitching. Alrighty, now that we have all of the holes punched, it's time to do some stitching, and I will show you how I did this stitching. Just cut a little of the embroidery floss and thread that. Okay. So I start in one of the squares, and I just kind of leave a little in the back because I'm going to tie it together when I tie it off. And I'm going to make an X. So I go across to the bottom and then back up. Whoa. And across to the top. So this is how it looks. And then I'm going to skip this next space right here, and my next X is going to be down there. And diagonal. Oops. Oh my word. This needle is just slipping right out of my hands. There we go. Okay, so we've got 2 little X stitches. And then that's all for that little section. So I just am going to tie this off on the back. Tie it in a couple knots and trim that. Or you could drag it and just start the next section up there. So the next section, I'm going to start my X shape right here. And I'm not going to make you watch me do all of this stitching, but I'm just simply making an X shape with the stitches and then skipping the next space and then coming back up in the next space. And that's how I did all of this. So I'm going to stitch around the whole layout, all of these little pieces, and then I will be right back. And I will turn the video back on after I get that all stitched. So I've got all of the stitching done, and now I'm going to come in and add a couple more little stitches here and there, just to some areas that I want to dress up a little. So I'm going to add a couple right there and a couple right here. And then I added some on this little heart, a couple down here, and then this is just added little extra pieces. You do not have to do this. And over the picture. I think that's about it. Oh, maybe a couple down here too. This would look nice. And for each X, you need 4 holes, like 2 and 2 for each stitch. So we got those added. And then I also used more of the twine. There's plenty of twine here. I also used it to tie in each of these tags. So I cut off about maybe 14 inches or so, and I folded it in half once and then in half twice. And that's what I tied through here, just to kind of give it a little thicker than just, oops. To give it a little thickness than just one thickness. One, oh my word, what's the word I'm looking for? Just to make it be a little thicker than just one thin piece of embroidery floss going through here. I doubled it and doubled it again. All right, folded it in half and folded it in half again. Let's see. Oh, this is really giving my nails a hard time here. There we go. And if you don't want the strings to be quite that long, you can just trim them just like that. So I'm going to do that in all 3 tags and then do these last little stitches. And that is the end of this. Oh no, I almost forgot my word love. See, this is why we didn't add love until the end, because you can see some of the stitches right through it. So the O and the E, I put flat on the page when I adhered them. And the L and the V, I used a little dimensional adhesive. So the O and the E are flat. And the V and the L are popped up on pop dots. So those are popped up off the page a little. If you'd like, you don't have to. Again, you can just put them flat on the page. And then the only thing, after I do these little finishing touches of the stitches, the only thing really that I have left is journaling. And you can journal straight on the back of this, or there's plenty of leftover of this color cardstock from the kit that you don't use, that you could cut journaling strips and maybe ink the edges in the same color ink and place them on here. You'll see them in my finished layout. I will have the journaling on the finished layout that has all the pictures. I'll have journaling strips up here to show you how. And if you want, you can add some little splatters maybe around this page. And then this side of the layout is essentially done. I'm just gonna finish up the stitching here, and I'm not gonna do it all on camera because That's not very exciting to watch someone hand stitching on a scrapbook page. But this is the end of this side, and after these stitches are done, and then I'm gonna come back and work on the right hand side of the layout. So I will see you in a minute. Okay, we're back and starting on the right hand side of the layout. I used 4 3x4 photos on this side of my layout, so that's what these will represent, is my 4 photos. And you're going to need all these other pieces here that you have left from what you cut. I think the first thing we should do is mat the pictures. So this piece that you cut from the inside of the cardstock, that's what you're going to use to mat all 4 of your photos. Okay, now that I've got all 4 of these matted, I'm going to ink the edges with the dried marigold Distress Oxide ink and my little blender, just to make them pop over off the page, off the layout a little, add a little color to them. You don't have to do this part, of course, if you don't like inking the edges. Just leave them as is. But I'm going to do this real quick. Now that all the edges are inked, we can start putting this layout together. And I'm just going to put adhesive around the edges here. Okay, this edge with the smaller, like the little strip, as opposed to this side with the wide strip that isn't trimmed, is the side that I want on the left side of this page, because then all 3 borders are the same. This is the odd one. It's going to be covered up. And it's going to be covered up by this paper right here. Oops. You're going to need to trim this paper down a little bit. I think I did not put that in the cutting instructions. I'm sorry about that. You're going to have to trim it down so it's not super long. Okay. So that's the base of this layout, and then we can start adding the pictures however you would like to lay your pictures out. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere the pictures. I just slightly overlapped the pictures in the middle so that they look like one big block of photographs instead of 4 little photographs with space in between. And the reason that I did that is because this page is so busy, like the patterns on this page is so busy that when I have the photos spread out, it's just even busier. And when they're in a block, they kind of look like one big grouping instead of more little things. Okay, I'm gonna move this one a little bit more wedged under here. Great. Now we have that part done and the photos are all laying out. And then you're gonna grab all of your leftover ephemera pieces that you still have left and pick whichever ones match well with your photos. I'll show you which pictures I chose, or not pictures, which ephemera I chose. I just went through this whole thing. I cut this one in half this way. I didn't care about the Handmade with Love But if you wanted that to show, you wouldn't cut it in half that way. So I'm gonna cut that in half because I've got part of it sticking out here and part of it sticking out over here. And yep, I just would pick whatever ones are fitting in to the theme of your layout. I did like this little hello and the little bird, but I didn't need the whole entire tag. So I cut it. And then I fussy cut this little bird to use him. He's so tiny. Okay. And I cut this hello. Okay, and then I also liked this today, but I didn't need the whole tag, so I cut that one down. And I did end up sticking it here, so I'm gonna trim the end off. And then I think the last piece that I used here was the other little mini envelope that we had cut from, oh, I haven't cut it yet. So we cut one little faux envelope there, and then I'm gonna cut another one from this side. And like I said, it's like a little faux envelope, and I folded the top down. And then I did use the packaging that comes with your little leaves. And I also used the leaves. The leaves are down here too. But the packaging on the back, I trimmed off the corners and punched a hole through the hole punch. And actually I have a hole punch that makes a paper reinforcer. I'll show you what I did with that. So with my paper reinforcer hole punch, I punched one out of the very bottom of this tag, so it looks like a wood paper reinforcer, and I'm going to use that on that. But since this tag slides under, you can't even see where I cut it. And then I used, let's see, which paper did I use? I used a little scrap of this. I'll use a bigger scrap to cut a paper reinforcer from that to use on my wooden tag. Okay, so now that you have the paper reinforcers done, I took this little frame and I added some of the extra paper that I used to mat these pictures on that I had left, and I adhered the today and the hello, and I made 3 little stitches so I can kind of bring the stitching in from the other page. And then I'm going to adhere this bird with a little dimension, and then I'm going to start adhering everything down to the page, because I think we have everything set up and where it needs to be, so now we can start adhering down. And I just used a regular hole punch to punch this hole out after I put the paper reinforcer on it. Okay. that adhered. I adhered this one with dimension. And then after you get all of these things adhered to your layout, I would go back in and add some stitching, some of the little X stitches wherever you wanted them. Oh, I adhered this one with a little dimension as well. So for instance, I put some stitching right here, I made a couple, and down here I made a couple, just to bring that stitching over to this side of the layout because there's so much stitching in the coordinating page. And then after you add your stitching, I tied the little bows through these 2 tags, and I adhered these little metal leaves down here sticking out of the corner like this. And that is the end of this layout, and I'm going to put still shots at the end of the video, and you can refer to your instructions for placement of all of these things too, and the pictures on our website. Thank you for watching. Bye.